You won't believe it when you find out how lucky I was to hear what my wife thinks of me. It not only helped me to break up with her, but also to get rich several times over. Let me tell you about it. I've been with my wife, Rachel, for 6 years now, married for 3. We met back in college, dated for a while, and eventually tied the knot. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just the usual path people take. And for the longest time, I thought we were doing all right. Sure, we had our share of arguments, mostly about money and the usual day-to-day stuff, but I figured that was normal. Every couple has disagreements. Nothing major. Nothing that felt like a real problem. Turns out, I was wrong. Last Friday night changed everything. Rachel had her usual get-together with her friends, something they did every couple of weeks to catch up. Normally, I stayed out of the way, holed up in my office, working, gaming, just letting them have their time. But that night, I headed downstairs to grab a snack from the kitchen. As I passed the living room, I heard my name. Sophie, Rachel's best friend, was in the middle of some hypothetical, her tone light, playful, like they were just messing around, indulging in one of those harmless little games friends play. But seriously, Rachel, she asked, a teasing lilt in her voice. What if someone better came along? What would you do? I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Not at first. But when my name came up, I couldn't help but listen. I had every right to, didn't I? And then Rachel, my wife, didn't even pause. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even pretend to think about it. Honestly, she said, like the answer was just so obvious. Just look at Jake. I froze in place. She laughed. He's fine, I guess, she continued, like she was describing an old, worn-out sweater she was debating tossing out. But if someone with more drive, better prospects came along, yeah, I'd probably upgrade. And then they all laughed. Like it was the funniest damn thing in the world. My stomach twisted, but she wasn't done. Apparently, I was too safe, too boring. I didn't make enough to give her the kind of lifestyle she really wanted. Our house wasn't nearly as nice as her friend Lauren's new place. My car, my perfectly good 2020 Honda Civic, was somehow embarrassing. I wasn't ambitious enough because I'd been at the same company for 4 years. He's stable, which is nice, Rachel went on, but I just wish he had a little more drive, you know? I mean, she added, Lauren's husband just got promoted again, and they're already talking about upgrading to a bigger house. Yeah, Sophie agreed, nodding. You deserve that kind of life too, right? And then Rachel sighed, this deep, disappointed sigh. Sometimes, she admitted, I just look at him and think, is this it? Is this my life? They all murmured in agreement. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. And it didn't stop there. My clothes? Apparently, I dressed like a dad, despite us not having kids. My laugh? Too loud. My entire existence? A letdown. I stood there, listening as my wife and her friends picked me apart, like I was some old, second-hand car she was just waiting to trade in. None of them disagreed with her. At least he's good with the house stuff, one of them offered. Yeah, Rachel replied, her voice dismissive. I mean, that's something. Like I was a damn butler. And the worst part? I've always supported her. When she wanted to quit her job to start her own business, I covered every bill for 8 months until she decided she didn't like it. When she wanted to go back to school for her master's degree, I paid for it. That nice car she drives? The payments come out of my account. And yet, listening to her now, you'd think I was some deadbeat who just sat around playing video games all day. He works all the time, she even complained. Like, no shit, Rachel. Someone had to. But apparently, that wasn't enough. She wanted me to be more. That was the phrase that stuck in my head. Be more. I turned around and walked back to my office, leaving the snacks behind. Not that I could eat anymore. I just sat there, staring at my computer screen, replaying everything I had just heard. How long had she felt this way? Had she been saying things like this to her friends for years? Was this what she really thought of me? And suddenly, all these little memories started bubbling up, offhand comments she'd made about other guys having better jobs or nicer things. The way she always seemed a little embarrassed when we ran into her coworkers. The way she kept tagging me in pictures of luxury homes and high-end cars on Instagram with captions like someday or goals. I used to think she was just dreaming big. No? Now, I wondered if she had been trying to tell me I wasn't good enough this entire time. And yeah, maybe I should have picked up on it sooner. But when you love someone, you don't want to see that kind of thing, you know. Looking back, I could probably name a dozen signs I ignored. But hearing her say it out loud, hearing her laugh about it, that hit different. It made me question everything. I started thinking about all the things I had done for her, all the ways I had tried to make her happy. And for what? Apparently, I was just a placeholder. A stepping stone. Something safe until someone better came along. I couldn't just sit there and pretend everything was fine. I tried. For maybe an hour after her friends left, I sat in my office, staring at the walls, playing her words over and over in my head. And then, around midnight, I finally got up. I had to confront her. I walked into our bedroom. She was getting ready for bed, acting like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just told her friends she'd drop me in a heartbeat if she got the chance. Did you mean what you said? My voice came out calmer than I expected. But the tension was there. She frowned, glancing up from her nightstand. What are you talking about? I folded my arms. What you said to your friends. About upgrading from me. About how I'm fine, I guess, but you'd rather have someone with more drive, better prospects. Her face shifted fast. First confusion, then realization, then a nervous little laugh. Oh my God, were you listening to us? She rolled her eyes. It was just girl talk. Don't be so sensitive. I felt something tighten in my chest. Just girl talk. That's what she called it. Like that made it okay to sit around and trash me in our own home. So that's your excuse? I asked, my voice steady. It doesn't count because it was just girl talk? She sighed and turned away, opening a drawer. Jake, you're overreacting. No, I said, stepping closer. I don't think I am. I heard everything, Rachel. The stuff about my job, my car, how I'm not ambitious enough. That didn't sound like jokes. She turned back, arms crossed. Well, if you're going to spy on private conversations, you're going to hear things you don't like. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. So now I'm the bad guy because I heard you talking shit about me? She groaned, rubbing her temples. Jesus, Jake. You're making such a big deal out of nothing. I shook my head. No, you don't joke about that. You don't sit there and tell your friends you'd trade your husband in and expect me to laugh it off. She scoffed. It wasn't serious. I exhaled, my hands balling into fists. Then tell me, do you actually want to be with me? Or am I just convenient until someone better comes along? That hit a nerve. Her whole expression shifted. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes flashing with something sharp. Anger, maybe? But just as quickly as it came, she switched gears. Like flipping a switch, her face crumpled, and tears welled up in her eyes. I can't believe you'd even ask me that, she whispered, her voice trembling like I'd just wounded her beyond repair. You're being so insecure right now. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't think it's insecurity when I literally heard you say it. Her lower lip trembled, but I wasn't falling for it. And then she dropped the real bomb. Maybe this is why I feel stuck sometimes. That word, stuck, hit me like a punch to the gut. Stuck, I repeated, my voice quieter now, but somehow heavier. After everything I had done for her, after I had covered the bills when she wanted to start her business, after I paid for her master's degree, after I bought the damn car she drives every day. Oh, so now you're keeping score? She snapped, her fake tears drying up in an instant. Real nice, Jake. Real nice. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. Do you realize that everything you complain about, our house, our finances, our lifestyle, it's all stuff I provide? Oh my God, she groaned, throwing her hands up like I was being so unreasonable. This is exactly what I was talking about with the girls. You don't get it. You just throw money at everything and think that's enough. I stared at her. You're the one who's always talking about wanting more money, a bigger house, a better car. She just crossed her arms and looked away, jaw tight, refusing to engage. And that's how it went, for nearly an hour. Every time I tried to bring up what I had heard, she had an excuse. Either I had taken it the wrong way, or I was twisting her words, or I was attacking her, or she'd suddenly get emotional, accusing me of making her feel bad. Or worse, she'd just changed the subject altogether. Finally, she threw her hands up in frustration. Fine. You want me to say it? I'm sorry, okay? Happy now. She grabbed a pillow from the bed and fluffed it aggressively. Can we please go to bed now? She muttered, like that somehow erased everything she had admitted in front of her friends. Like we could just move on and pretend she hadn't literally said she was waiting for something better to come along. I didn't say another word. I just turned around, walked out, and shut the door behind me. That night, I ended up in the guest room. I lay there, staring at my phone, rereading the text Rachel sent me at 2 a.m. Thanks for making me feel terrible. Hope you're happy now that you've ruined our night. I didn't respond. What was the point? She clearly didn't understand why I was upset. Or worse, she understood and just didn't care. The morning after. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, casually asked what I wanted for dinner later, even hummed to herself while scrolling through her phone. But I noticed something. She was checking her phone a lot. More than usual. Maybe I was just being paranoid, but I couldn't shake the thought. Is she already looking for that upgrade she was talking about? I tried to work from home that day, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying every word she had said the night before. At one point, I found myself scrolling through old photos, stopping on one from our wedding day. We both looked so damn happy. Now, I couldn't help but wonder, had she already been thinking about replacing me back then? Had I been blind this whole time? Little things started standing out, things I had ignored before. How she insisted I come to her work events but then acted weird when I was there. How she never posted pictures of us together anymore. How she had been working late, a lot lately. Maybe I was overthinking it. But after hearing what she really thought of me, I didn't know what to believe anymore. The shift. I tried to act normal, but things only got worse. She was glued to her phone constantly, always typing away. But the second I walked into the room, she'd flip it over or lock the screen. She started taking every call in the other room, claiming it was work stuff. Since when did work require so many private conversations? And it wasn't just that. She had checked out of our relationship completely. No more asking how my day was. No more little gestures of affection. Nothing. She was physically here, but mentally? She was somewhere else. Somewhere far more interesting than me. Then it hit me, the money. I was covering everything. Mortgage. Utilities. Car payments. Insurance. Meanwhile, her salary? Straight into her personal account. She'd occasionally throw a couple $100 toward groceries, but that was it. When I finally brought it up, she got defensive. We agreed this arrangement works best, she snapped. Did we? I asked, keeping my voice as steady as possible. Because I don't remember agreeing that I'd pay for everything while you stash away your paycheck for. What, exactly? For our future, Jake, she said, rolling her eyes. Why are you suddenly making this a thing? Our future. Right. The one where she eventually replaces me with someone better. And it wasn't just the money. She had started canceling every plan we made. Last Wednesday, we were supposed to have dinner together, something we did every week. But she texted me at 4:30, saying she had to work late. I let it go. Until I saw her coworker's Instagram story, showing half the office leaving for happy hour at 3 p.m. When I asked her about it later, she barely looked up from her phone. Oh yeah, I forgot about the work thing, she said, completely uninterested. I just didn't want to make you feel bad. That was becoming a pattern. And she was spending more. New clothes. Expensive makeup. Salon visits every other week. When I gently brought up cutting back, since I was paying for everything, she got teary-eyed and accused me of being financially controlling. Controlling, I repeated, stunned. I'm paying all the bills while you stash away your paycheck, and I'm the one controlling you? See? This is what I mean, she snapped. You just throw money at everything and expect me to be grateful. That shut me up. Not because I agreed, but because I realized something. There was no winning this argument. No matter what I said, she twisted into something else. The confirmation. Then, Mike told me something that made my stomach drop. We were grabbing beers at his place when he suddenly went quiet, looking unsure about whether to say something. Finally, he sighed. Listen, man, last week, my wife and I saw Rachel at that fancy restaurant downtown. Rachel? I frowned. You sure? Yeah, he nodded. She was dressed up. Like, way more than usual. We were gonna go say hi, but then some guy sat down at her table. My hands clenched into fists. That same night, Rachel told me she was having dinner with her sister, Kay. When I casually mentioned running into Mike downtown, I watched her reaction. She didn't even flinch. Oh, that's nice, she said, and then changed the subject. The line came so easily to her now, and I started noticing other things too. She had all these new outfits, but I never saw her wear them at home, or when we went out together. Her new gym schedule didn't make any sense. Some mornings, she'd say she was heading out at 6 a.m., but when I left for work at 7:30, her car was still sitting in the driveway. And then there was the perfume. She'd come home smelling like scents she didn't even own, always ready with an explanation about where she'd been. But the details never quite lined up. Whenever her family visited, she acted like everything was perfect. Last Sunday, her parents came over for dinner, and suddenly she was all over me, laughing at my jokes, touching my arm, sitting close. The second they left, it was right back to barely acknowledging me. It was like I didn't exist unless she needed to put on a show. Doubt started creeping in. Was I just being paranoid because of what I heard her say to her friends? Or had I been blind this whole time? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. She'd been checking out of this marriage for a while. That conversation I overheard wasn't just random venting. It was her telling her friends exactly how she saw me. Despite that, she still expected me to handle everything. The bills, the house maintenance, the car repairs. All the things a husband is supposed to do. But the second I asked anything of her, even something as small as honesty about where she had been, I was suddenly suffocating her. I kept thinking about something my dad used to say. Actions tell you everything you need to know about how someone feels about you. And Rachel's actions? They couldn't have been clearer. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was a convenience, someone to keep the house running while she lived her life however she wanted. Then everything changed. My laptop completely died. Wouldn't turn on at all. I had a huge work presentation due the next day, and all my files were on it. I was freaking out. Rachel had this nice work laptop she always brought home, so I asked if I could borrow it for an hour, just long enough to access my cloud drive and finish my edits. She got weird about it. I just need to clean up some work stuff first, she said quickly, already glancing at her phone. I'll set it up for you later. Then, before I could say anything else, actually, I've got yoga class. I need to head out. She rushed out the door before even touching her laptop, but she left her bag sitting right there in the living room. I've never been the type to snoop. I never wanted to, but I was desperate to fix this presentation. And besides, she'd used my laptop plenty of times before. We were married, right? It wasn't a big deal. I opened her laptop. All I needed was my cloud drive. That's when I saw it. Tinder. Right there in her most visited sites. Not even hidden. And next to it, some dating site I had never even heard of. My stomach dropped. Her email was open too. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the laptop. There were messages. Dozens of them. Conversations with different guys. She had profiles on multiple dating sites. But the worst part? Every single one of them listed her as separated and looking to upgrade. She had actually written out a whole bio about being stuck in a stagnant marriage, ready to meet someone who matched her ambition, someone who could give her the lifestyle she deserved. The same thing she had said to her friends that night. But now, she wasn't just venting. She was advertising it. Dozens of messages. All right there in plain sight. My hands were still shaking when I clicked on one. Last night was amazing. You looked even better than your pictures. Can't wait to see you again. Rachel's reply was right below it. I had such a great time too. You really know how to make a woman feel special. Maybe next time we won't have to rush out so soon. Winky face. I could barely breathe. My stomach twisted, nausea creeping up my throat. I clicked on another. So, are you actually separated, or just saying that? Her response was casual. Dismissive. Emotionally, yeah. It's just a matter of timing now. A matter of timing. Like our marriage was just some logistical hurdle she had to work around. I felt like an idiot. Like I had been living in a completely different reality from her this whole time. I scrolled through more messages, my body going numb. She had profiles on multiple sites, all with different versions of the same bio. Some version of trapped in a stagnant marriage, looking for someone who matches my ambition, someone who can give me the lifestyle I deserve. The same word she had used with her friends that night. But now, it was methodical. Planned. I switched over to her Google Calendar, my gut already telling me what I'd find. Every yoga class, every girls' night, every late work event, they all lined up perfectly with her meetups. It was so organized, so intentional, like watching the evidence of a crime unfold in front of me. Then I saw the message that broke me. Last night was amazing. I can still smell you on me. I gagged, scrambling away from the laptop like it had burned me. My hands clutched at my knees as I fought the urge to throw up right there on the floor. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at nothing, my brain refusing to catch up with what I had just seen. Eventually, my hands moved on their own. I reached for my phone, not because I wanted to keep any of this, but because I knew what was coming. She'd deny it. She'd twist it. She'd make me out to be the crazy one. So I took screenshots. Every message, every dating profile, every event in her calendar. By the time I was done, my hands were still shaking. My entire body felt numb. But then I found something worse. She had a folder in her Google Drive labeled New Life Planning. At first, I thought it was work-related. But when I opened it, my heart sank. Inside were screenshots of houses she liked, luxury cars she wanted, even a budget spreadsheet. But the numbers didn't add up. She had calculated everything based on way more money than I made. Then I saw the notes. The kind of man she was looking for. How much he should earn. What kind of car he should drive. Where he should live. It was like a damn shopping list. Except instead of groceries, she was shopping for my replacement. And then I saw another section. Divorce planning. She had been researching divorce lawyers, alimony laws, ways to maximize her assets in a split. She had been planning this whole thing, while still living off my money. I felt like I was going to throw up. Somehow, I managed to finish my work presentation that night. But I honestly don't even remember doing it. I put everything back exactly how I found it. When Rachel walked through the door after her so-called yoga class, I just watched her. How was class? I asked, keeping my voice calm and neutral. She smiled easily, like nothing in the world was wrong. Oh, it was amazing. We had a substitute instructor today, and she really pushed us. I feel so good already. Meanwhile, I knew she hadn't been at yoga at all. She had been sitting across from some guy named Brad at a coffee shop, laughing and flirting like a woman who wasn't technically still married. The next few days were like stepping into some bizarre alternate reality. I had to act normal, carry on like I didn't know everything. I watched her, phone in hand, texting these guys right in front of me, probably thinking she was being so damn clever. She made up excuses for where she was going, came home late with half-hearted stories, and I just nodded along, pretending to believe it. The whole time, all I could think about were the messages I had read, the plans she was making, the men she was lining up, the lies. And the most twisted part? In some of her messages, she actually told these guys she was faithful, that she wasn't the type to cheat, that she would never cross that line until she found the right person, until she was ready to leave her marriage the proper way. Like that somehow made it better. Like she wasn't actively out there shopping for my replacement while still living under my roof, spending my money, eating the meals I bought, sleeping in our bed. But instead of confronting her right away, I decided to be patient. I found a divorce lawyer. Let's call him Mark. I laid it all out for him, the dating profiles, the messages, the calendar full of fake plans that conveniently lined up with her meetups. Turns out, that new life planning folder of hers might actually be useful to me. It proved she had been planning to leave for a long time, while letting me financially support her every step of the way. Mark helped me come up with a plan. And the first step? Cut off her access to my money. Since I had been handling our finances for years, making changes wasn't difficult. I opened a new account at a completely different bank and had my paycheck deposited there instead of our joint account. I left just enough in the joint account to cover basic bills, just enough that she wouldn't notice right away. A week later, she finally did. Hey, babe, she called from the kitchen. Did your paycheck go through yet? The joint account looks a little low. I shrugged, keeping my tone casual. Yeah, work's been weird about overtime lately. Just trying to budget better, just in case. She frowned. Budget better? I have personal expenses, you know. I smiled. Times are tough. Funny how she was always talking about wanting a man with more money, yet she could barely function with less access to mine. That was only the beginning. I started documenting everything. Every time she lied about where she was going. Every weird expense. Every late-night work event that wasn't really work. I put together a spreadsheet. Mark said it would help me show a pattern in court. I even kept track of when her car was gone versus when she claimed to be somewhere. The numbers didn't add up at all. Then, I started slowly pulling back from all the things I used to do for her. For years, I had handled everything, big and small. Car maintenance, that was me. Her family's events, I planned them. Even dumb little things like making sure she always had her favorite snacks, I took care of it all. So I stopped. Her car needed an oil change? Not my problem. Her parents' anniversary dinner? Every year, I made the reservations, bought the gifts, and handled it all. This time, nope. Hey, did you book anything for my parents' anniversary yet? She asked one evening. I barely looked up from my phone. Oh, I thought you were handling that this time. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh well, I guess I can. She scrambled to throw something together last minute, and her parents definitely noticed. Then, I started going to the gym. Not because of her. Because I needed somewhere to put all this anger. I found a 24-hour gym near my office and started going there instead of coming straight home after work. Rachel actually complained. You're never home anymore, she said one night, arms crossed. I raised an eyebrow. Really? I thought you wanted space. She sighed. It's just, you're acting weird. You're not spending enough time with me. Pretty rich coming from someone who was actively trying to replace me. But the money changes? That's what really started getting to her. Last week, she wanted to buy some expensive dress for a work event. Normally, she'd just buy it, and I'd deal with the credit card bill later. This time, her card got declined. Rachel called me, her voice full of irritation. "Jake, what the hell? My card isn't working," she snapped. I kept my voice calm. "Yeah, we need to watch our spending right now." There was a pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head before she suddenly softened her tone. "Well, maybe you should think about asking for a raise. Or, I don't know, looking for something better." I nearly laughed. "Maybe you can do that too," I said. "And maybe that'll set an example for me." It was almost impressive how fast she pivoted from anger to manipulation. I just mumbled something about the economy being tough and let her stew. Meanwhile, I kept tightening the financial leash. Random subscriptions I hadn't even realized I was paying for? Cancelled. Cable package? Downgraded. Fancy name-brand groceries she liked? Replaced with generics. Every time she complained, I just shrugged. Budgeting is important, Rachel. We have to be responsible. And the best part? She was finally starting to realize that her perfect life wasn't so perfect without me managing it. The little things I had always taken care of, house maintenance, car repairs, bill payments, meal planning, were now on her. And she was terrible at it. One day, the garage door broke. Normally, I would have dropped everything to fix it. This time, I barely glanced at it. "Yeah, we should probably call someone," I said before going back to watching TV. She waited 2 days, clearly expecting me to cave, before finally calling a repair service herself. It cost her $200 of her money. Suddenly, she was complaining about how expensive everything was getting. And the funniest part? She was still on those dating apps. Yeah, I checked her browser history from time to time. Still out there telling guys she wanted a man who was more ambitious, someone who could provide. Meanwhile, she was dealing with a car that needed maintenance, a garage door that kept breaking, and a credit card that actually had limits. I won't lie, watching her struggle was satisfying. Then, she made her move. One evening, I was on the couch, scrolling through my phone, probably while she was texting one of her backups, when she came up to me, all smiles and sweetness. "Jake, I was thinking, we should go away this weekend. Just the two of us." I barely looked up. "Oh yeah? Well, us and the usual group," she added. "Sophie and Daniel, Lauren and Ethan, Julia and Brandon. Everyone's going. We're renting this amazing lake house for a couple's weekend." She sat down next to me, touching my arm, using that soft, coaxing voice she always used when she wanted something. I almost laughed right in her face. Was she serious? She'd been swiping through dating apps for months, listing herself as separated, planning her perfect upgrade. And now she wanted to play happy couple for a weekend with the same friends who had encouraged her to trade me in? But then, an idea hit me. I smiled at her. "That sounds perfect." Her whole face lit up like she'd just won some grand prize. She probably thought she had me wrapped around her finger again. That I was still the same clueless husband who'd keep paying for everything while she lined up my replacement behind my back. The funny thing? The entire next week, she suddenly started acting like a wife again. She asked about my day, made dinner for the first time in months, even cuddled up next to me on the couch like everything was fine. And then she posted about me on Instagram. First time since January. Some cutesy little caption about how excited she was for our romantic weekend getaway. Her friends, the same ones who cheered her on when she talked about replacing me, flooded the comments with heart emojis and couple goals nonsense. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, going over every last detail. Mark and I spent hours making sure everything was airtight. The screenshots from her laptop, her dating profiles, the new life planning folder. Still can't believe she actually named it that. The bank statements proving I paid for everything while she tucked her own money away. The divorce papers were ready. They were sitting in my briefcase, waiting. And Rachel? She kept asking why I was bringing work stuff on our romantic weekend. The drive up to the lake house was surreal. Rachel was acting like we were newlyweds again, reaching over to hold my hand while I drove, snapping selfies for Instagram, talking nonstop about all the cute couples activities she had planned. I just nodded, played along, let her believe everything was perfect. Meanwhile, I knew exactly what she had been up to. Her phone had been blowing up all morning, with messages from her dating apps. I knew because I checked. Maybe that was wrong. But at this point, who cares? Mark told me to stay calm and stick to the plan. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one sitting next to a woman who had spent months pretending she was still in love with me while actively planning her escape. The lake house was exactly what I expected. One of those sleek, modern rentals with floor-to-ceiling windows and a price tag that made no sense. Rachel's eyes lit up the second we pulled in, the same way they always did when she sent me listings for expensive houses and called them goals. Funny, considering I was the one actually paying our bills. The rest of the group arrived not long after. Sophie and Daniel, of course, were the first ones there. Figures. Sophie had definitely been coaching Rachel through this whole thing. Then Lauren and Ethan, Julia and Brandon. We all gathered around the massive kitchen island, sipping drinks and talking about jobs, vacations, and whatever else people like them found important. Rachel was in full performance mode, laughing too loud, touching my arm every chance she got, making a huge show of how amazing things had been between us lately. I caught Sophie giving her these little nods, like she was coaching her through a performance. It made me sick. Dinner was at an oversized dining table, the kind no one actually uses unless they're hosting 12 people for a formal meal. Everyone took turns talking about their perfect lives, their promotions, their trips to Europe, their expensive home renovations. Afterward, we all moved out to the deck. The night was warm, the sky was clear, the kind of setting that made everything feel cinematic. The girls took pictures, probably for their backup Instagram accounts. The guys did that thing where they pretended to care about each other's jobs. I let them all get comfortable. Then, I told them I had something special planned, something we could all watch together. Rachel perked up instantly. "Ah, babe, what is it?" she asked, her voice sweet and eager, probably expecting some sappy slideshow about our relationship. I connected my laptop to the TV. The first thing that popped up? Rachel's Tinder profile. The one where she called herself separated. The deck went silent. Then, her messages started appearing on the screen. The ones where she told random men how stuck she felt with me. How she was looking for someone more ambitious. I scrolled through her conversations. The meetups she had planned. The times she used her friends as alibis. Then came the photos. The nudes she had sent. The plans for her new life. The folder. Her actual, meticulously organized folder, where she had documented her escape plan like a damn job search. Rachel's face drained of color. She lunged for my laptop, but I was faster. "What the hell, Jake?" she screeched, panic in her voice. Sophie, the same Sophie who had encouraged all of this, just kept muttering, "Oh my God, oh my God." Lauren got up and walked away completely. The guys looked like they wanted to disappear. Pretty sure Daniel was mentally calculating whether his wife had a secret folder too. Rachel tried everything. First, she screamed at me for going through her laptop. Funny how privacy only mattered when it worked in her favor. Then she tried to downplay it. "It's not what it looks like," she insisted, her voice shaking. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "It's exactly what it looks like." And that's when the waterworks started. "You're just trying to humiliate me," she sobbed, her eyes darting around, searching for sympathy. I reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers, setting them on the table. Then, I met her eyes. "Remember when you let me borrow your laptop because mine broke?" I asked, my voice calm, controlled. I watched the realization dawn in her expression. "Thanks for that, by the way," I added. Really opened my eyes. Rachel kept looking around at her friends, practically begging them to back her up. But no one said a word. Not even Sophie, who usually defended Rachel no matter what. Sophie just stared at her feet, looking deeply uncomfortable. I guess it's different when there's actual proof right in front of you. I grabbed my bag, taking my time, making sure they all saw how calm I was. "I already paid my share of the rental," I said, adjusting my jacket. "You guys enjoy your weekend." Rachel was full on sobbing now, scrambling after me as I walked to my car. "Jake, please. I can explain everything." Her voice was desperate, high-pitched. I didn't even look at her. The last thing I heard before I shut the door was Lauren's voice, sharp and disgusted. "I can't believe you'd do this to him." Coming from Lauren? That was rich. She was one of the ones who had laughed about me that night. As soon as I started driving, my phone exploded with texts. From Rachel. From her friends. All the usual. I had no idea. "And I'm so sorry." Yeah, right? Total bullshit. They knew. They encouraged it. Then her family found out. That was rough. Her mom called me the next day, crying, asking what went wrong. Turns out Rachel had been feeding them lies for months, telling them I was distant, uninterested, that I was the one checking out of the marriage. So, I went to their house, sat down in their living room, and showed them everything. The screenshots. The dating profiles. The new life planning folder. Her dad just sat there, getting quieter and quieter. This was the same man who used to treat me like a son, who always bragged about how lucky Rachel was to have found someone responsible. No? He couldn't even look at the screenshots. When Rachel finally tried explaining herself to them later, it did not go well. Her dad barely held back his disgust. I didn't raise you to be this kind of person. Her mom just cried. They're still talking to her. Of course, she's their daughter. But it's different now. Her dad hasn't spoken to me since that day. But later, I got a text from him. I'm sorry. You deserved better. That one hit harder than I expected. As for her friends, they scattered like cockroaches when the lights came on. Sophie sent me some weak-ass message about how she never meant for any of this to happen and was just trying to be supportive of Rachel. Yeah, super supportive. Laughing about replacing me. Daniel, her husband, actually called me. Man, I had no idea what they talked about when they got together. Sure, buddy, I replied. Lauren and Julia? Unfriended Rachel on everything. Probably worried their husbands might start wondering what they said during girls' nights. But the real drama? Rachel's sister, Kay, was furious. Not just because Rachel used her as an alibi for sneaking around, but because Kay actually defended her to their parents at first. There must be some explanation, she told them. Then she saw the evidence. Realized just how many times Rachel had lied to her face. Now, they're not speaking. Rachel's staying with her cousin Hannah in the city, the only family member who will still put up with her. And she's been blowing up my phone. First, it was anger. You humiliated me. Yeah, because I'm the one who made dating profiles while married. Then came the crying. I'm so sorry. I'll change. Now, she's negotiating. Like we're splitting up a business instead of a marriage. Mark, my lawyer, says the divorce should be simple. Turns out, Rachel's little new life planning folder? Super helpful legally. She tried to claim alimony at first, saying she was used to a certain lifestyle. That fell apart fast when Mark pulled up her own messages about looking for a richer guy. Hard to argue you need financial support when you were literally bragging about your secret savings. The house feels weird now. Empty, but not in a bad way. Rachel came by last week with her cousin to grab some of her things. She kept trying to talk to me while she packed. Jake, I really think we can work this out. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Talk to Mark about it. She didn't like that. I think I'm doing okay. It's crazy how different everything feels now. 2 months ago, I was standing in my kitchen, listening to my wife joke about upgrading from me. Now, she's crashing in her cousin's spare room, trying to figure out how to afford her own place. Turns out, the better life she wanted isn't so easy when you actually have to pay for it yourself. Her dating profiles? Still up. A friend of Hannah's saw them. Now, she calls herself recently separated and an independent woman. Had a laugh at that last part. Real independent, now that she has to pay her own bills. But then, something funny happened. At the gym last week, I ran into someone. There's this girl who works there. She's been helping me figure out proper form for some exercises. One day, after my workout, we ended up chatting for a bit. We talked before, just casual stuff, but this time, we grabbed coffee afterward. Turns out, she went through something similar last year. Not the exact same situation, but close enough that she knows what it's like to have someone you trusted completely betray you. And for the first time in months, I had a real conversation. No manipulation. No games. No guilt tripping. Just normal, honest conversation. It felt good. We've been texting a little since then. Nothing serious. Just talking. She's cool. Actually works for what she wants instead of expecting everything handed to her. It's refreshing. I didn't think I'd be interested in dating again this soon. But it's not even about that. It's just nice to be around someone real. You've never made sushi before? She asked when I mentioned my plans for the night. I shook my head. Nope. Can't say I have. She grinned. Then you're in for a challenge. But don't worry, I won't judge you if your roles fall apart. I laughed. Can't be worse than my first attempt at making steak. Rachel nearly choked on it. She smirked. Well, good thing I know how to cook. You'll leave here alive. And that's when it hit me. While Rachel was out there, searching for an upgrade, I was the one who actually ended up with something better. Someone who's honest about who they are. Someone who doesn't fake things or pretend to be something they're not. It's not about rushing into anything. It's just about being around good people again. Oh, and I finally canceled the Netflix account yesterday, the one Rachel's probably still using over at her cousin's place. Funny thing is, I don't even care. Got better things to focus on now. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.